Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. Nights that made the days brighter. Through the games of human morality, or the evolution of creaturehood towards its more sophisticated displays. First, there seems to have been an unconscious world. From the unconscious world, there was a lift into the unconscious self. So in other words, first there's nothing to notice anything. Then there is something, but it doesn't notice itself. The unconscious self, the objective evolution. Legs, arms, creaturehood emerged. From the unconscious self, we went to the conscious self. The subjective evolution. And evolution made an object become a subject to itself. This moment is a very big mystery. Because what made our species differentiate from other species was the mystery. That's the clue. So we went from an unconscious world to an unconscious self, from an unconscious self to unconscious self, and now we are right there. We're in the middle of the conscious self to the next phase, which is the conscious world. There was a moment where I was like, wait a minute, at the same time that I think I am me and my whole life story and everything, I am actually being a part of the earth, being aware of the earth. And then I thought, what if the whole purpose of consciousness is that it's a program inside a program? We are right now objective individuals with subjective identification with the environment. We're neither objects or subjects because the objective and the subjective changes. It's phenomenal because they say the cells in the body change every 2 weeks. That means every day you look at yourself in the mirror, that is not the same physical exact. It's like there's a change. Cells are dying, cells are being created. And for me, it seems to be the DNA seems to be the soul of the cells of the body, the space they have to move. From a conscious self, the leap to the conscious world, that is 2020 and beyond. In other words, we are an effort of the earth to see itself, but we are an incomplete effort of the earth to see itself. And if there is a chance that this universal sector aims for completion, then it's as if we are not here so that we recognize our body has one mind. We are here to recognize that the world is a mind. That means we have this view where we are bodies and there's subjectivity and the phenomena of consciousness going on, and we're like, what is this? And so an object is masking itself through a subjectivity that is semi-based on the objectivity. That means the human decision isn't just from an outer landscape. Oh no. Anger is not an inner, like the angry person is not just seeing phenomena in the world that is just right there in front of them. The angry person, the past is in their ear. Language is a cocoon. I've pretty much explained it as a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. That means we are a subject oriented, pretty much a subjective phenomenology seems to be the free will for an objective phenomenology. We think the objective phenomenology is the precondition to the subjectivity. In one angle it is, but in one angle it is not. That means it's strange that in many branches of knowledge they speak about the idea of balance. We got to be balanced. We got to look at it from both sides. But it seems that the way civilization has been built is that we are looking as matter as the cause. And the effect is immaterial. A body is leading to a personality. But if we were to entertain it, not entertain, but just to have balance, it would mean the same time you feel you're a body projecting a mind, you will feel you're a mind moving the body. In our dream states, that is the case. Now, what would the conscious world look like? I've thought about this, and for me, I thought that, like certain moments, I thought the evolutionary phase, that shift into the conscious world, it may come as soon as we can connect our heads to computers and no longer be an individual entity. It's pretty much a suggestion where the world is conscious before the individual consciousness is the only consciousness. Pretty much it means right now your conscious mind is like a circle and the unconscious mind is a bigger circle around this. It means that in the final phase of evolution in this plane of existence, we will be the unconscious looking at the conscious. So what does that mean? That means all that consciousness is a movement from meaning towards meaninglessness, at the edge of meaninglessness back into meaning. We are an oscillation between dimensions. There is a quote that says, "It is in the darkest hour of night that the sun rises." Without the darkness, we don't see the beauty of the light. Without a light in the room in the first place, we cannot have the notion of darkness. That means if good and bad didn't have one another, there would be no separate existence of them. This is the codependence of the dualistic dimension. The same way we're saying night and day, we're saying an object and subject. Can you separate an object from a subject? Only if there's a witnessing factor beyond both, the range of both. There's moments in life where you feel it's linear. It has an instruction, it has a meaning. A moves to B, B moves to C, C moves to D. But there's moments in life where you're suddenly in the A phase and the D, you notice the D phase, or you're at the C phase and suddenly you remember something about the B phase. Something that I personally entertain is that the moment I wake up, I don't try to impose anything on the day. I don't think of it as a good day, as a bad day, as an easy day, hard day, as a light day or a heavy day. I don't think about it, or a slow day or a fast day. I don't think about this. For me, it's like, how much can you think about it? Every day you wake up, you experience a sequence of events, and then you go to sleep. Then you wake up, experience a sequence of events, go to sleep. So after a while, you can't just keep planning. There's a sort of surprise factor that the human being seeks. It's like, uh, it's like, what's a good metaphor? It's as if, like, the person wanted to be, I don't know what metaphor to find for this, but pretty much it's just this notion that we want big things to happen, but as long as we act in small ways, it is impossible. There's an inner authorization required. Only the experienced coach can see this in the soccer players or football players or of any sport. The coach can see. Like, you can just look at a person's eyes and know how they want to run into the field. There's this incredible idea that, I don't know, if I can give it a narrative, it would, if I create a narrative for the image, it would be something like, the person is saying, the person is in a dangerous situation, and it's like, God, imagine the person speaking to God. And the person's like, God, help me out, keep me alive, please, something like that. Imagine a movie scene. And what you never see is the voice of God being like, why? You never see that, you know? Can you just take that in? That the person's like, keep me alive, and imagine the voice of God's like, why should I? You know? Then man is looking at God and it's like, God, why not? Didn't you create me? And imagine the person says, if you don't know your value, then I have failed. I didn't create you. Imagine. So guys, somebody in the in the chat section says, talk about the notion of violence and death. What can I say? There is some endings to chapters. We are like candles. The light, after some point, it bows to the performance it has done and it just leaves. I could tell you that when it comes to violence, it's very easy to make a quick analysis on it. That due to the idea that it takes things longer to build and it's much easier to break something, that means it may take you a while to build a house, but you can demolish it in a day. Okay, so violence is the argument towards the approach towards violence is that it's stupid. You could use it to be powerful, but either way, it's stupid. That means history is looking at you like, look at this idiot being violent. Yeah. The reason is simply because to get rid of human life, to get rid of opportunity, is a failure. It's like trying to think like, imagine if Albert Einstein was bullied at school and never wrote his essay or something, you know? Sometimes in life, when you're smart, you see what's important and you move towards that. The whole point is you are here once. What kind of performance do you want to leave behind, and how do you want to perform? For me, I realize if I'm performing in front of myself on some level, if I just care for myself, then I don't care what happens to anything. That means if I just don't care for my environment, it deteriorates. It gets destroyed. Anything you don't care about your car, after a while, it's not the same car. You see, so there's an element of care. And so I'm saying, holy shit, people have, let's say, 1/3 of your life you're sleeping. 1/3 of it, they say it's mobility. 1/3 of it, like you're just moving around and getting places. And 1/3, it's you're consciously actually living and experiencing life. So it's like in 1/3 of the lifetime where the person's conscious, imagine the person uses that to experience destruction. Let me tell you, you don't need to be violent to anyone, anybody who was thinking of the idea of even revenge. Let me tell you, waste of time idea. Why? Because nature puts an end to everything. That means every person that there was a time I was so foolish that I thought I had enemies. I was so foolish in my youth. But you know, that's at least a sign that I was trying something. The only enemy you have is the inability to see the progression of the movement, of the moment. Violence is like being given a Ferrari and driving it at 10 miles per hour. It's a misuse of intelligence. It's like the person didn't realize they're given an incredible Iron Man suit not to go punch citizens in the face, but to actually go and build something, you know? Imagine like a compassionate version of Tony Stark where he's like, all right, everybody gets an Iron Man suit. And then everybody gets an Iron Man suit, and imagine somebody's like, all right, time to build. And we actually become incredible builders. That could be a great solution to exercise in the future. That we exercise inside robotic suits. Therefore, it becomes like intense, you know? Like right now, we have something like paintball, okay, where people go and they wear masks and whatnot and they shoot each other with balls of paint, you know, through these air guns. So it's like we have that. I could totally see in the future they're gonna put like this wasteland and people in robotic suits are just gonna play. You know, young kids. If an alien saw Earth, it would be like giant robots fighting, but actually inside the robots are little kids having fun. It's a child's activity, giant robots fighting in real life. You know, imagine, imagine it gets to that point. For me, there is a significance in life. Not that necessarily there's a significance and meaning to every moment, but life is kind of like you can, if you get momentum in a certain direction, there comes a certain type of accumulation. You don't know how fascinating the power of decision is. The power of decision is to a level of you realizing who you are. That means your decisions every person's decisions reflect how much of the world they saw before they made the decision. That's why there's mistakes. That's the feedback. In this episode, I would like to share certain contemplations, certain moments. They're not really words or even things I can word. They were just glimpses of the world I was walking in. Certain moments that harbored emotions that reminded the person of a nostalgia of what could have been if I had walked a different way. The mind is a romantic. The mind. It is endlessly fascinated by how information redefines it. And yet we will reach it. We are close. We are close towards, you can say, once we understand silence is golden, we will find the true wealth of the world. That there is potential before emergence, and that potential is the will of the pre-land, the pre-location. I don't know if people are using this term, but I think they should at pre-local rather than non-local. For pre-local doesn't mean it's not a location. Pre-local could mean this location is a simulation from another location. I remember I wrote this comedy thing. It was like this hilarious conversation. Just the idea came and I was writing it. And it was between these two friends, and one of the friends had called the other friends and he's like, "Bro, I'm on the moon." And the other friend was like, "Hey man, what are you saying? How are you on the moon?" And they're like casual, chill people. And the person's like, I'm on the moon, man. I'm not joking. And the person's like, "What do you mean you're on the moon? How did you get in the moon?" And it becomes this deep conversation. And at the end, you realize the friend who had called, was saying that Earth is being simulated from the moon. It was just a sci-fi narrative that I was just expanding further, but the notion of it was pre-local, that our location seems like a dream where we don't know its beginning and its end, and even if we did, it's changing all the time. That means that the debate between the theist and atheist was only on the point that life is moving, but is it moving with humanized comprehension, or is it incomprehensible to the human being? Because, it's easy to believe in the human body, but you can't believe in the human mind. You know why? Because the human mind is not something that could be seen, it's the seer, it's the one looking. So if the one looking was to see itself, it would be inconceivable. There would be no duality. So those who reach non-duality, it's because the mind has calmed down. You have a calm mind. Let's slow hand clap for all the calm minds in the universal sector. That's an achievement. For me, there was imagery that, I don't know, the moment I saw it, I felt it evoked characterhood in me. That means it's like a child. Who knows? Like, imagine you see a great violinist, and if you ask them about their memory, you would see when they were young, the child just saw someone play a violin, and it was like a sort of iridescent, or like reverent moment. For me, I think the same way there were yogis that saw gurus, that there were divine, I think it's the musician that sees the instrument or hears the instrument being played for the first time. It's like seeing a new dimension of possibility the mind didn't know, and that's when the mind begins moving. And the cool thing is, the human mind just requires only a little bit to get the engines going. Then it's designed to be self-sustaining. The imagery is that of the general. The general imagined back in the day. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you can even envision something like that, where there was a general's tent, there was a headquarters, there was somewhere where the bewildered soul could retire to and stabilize itself. You know, for some people, the inner realms, they're trying to run away from it, and from some people, their inner realms has become the grace inside the silent temple. It is a place where you go to be alone with the cosmos and its voice. That means you can say meditation is listening through cosmic ears, prayer is speaking through the cosmic tongue. I believe it was Paramahansa Yogananda. Paramahansa Yogananda had a guru, Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna's guru was an intense person who had used this glass to cut Ramakrishna's third eye and awaken him to the nature of reality. And Ramakrishna was this very traditional yogic dude. This is very, you can say, extreme, like really street, or I could say jungle yoga, that level. But so Ramakrishna, his student Paramahansa Yogananda, evidently one day he comes and he says, my mother is dying. Paramahansa Yogananda says this to Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna is silent. His guru is silent. And he says the shrine room is there. Go and pray for her. And Ramakrishna is just watching. Remember, they're yogis. They're not like monotheistic religions. And so Paramahansa Yogananda goes inside the shrine room, the meditation hall. He sits there and he's about to pray, but there's this silence of non-duality, as if God is in the room. An hour goes by. Paramahansa Yogananda steps out of the room. Ramakrishna looks at him and says, did you pray? He says, I couldn't. And Ramakrishna says, what do you mean you couldn't? Go and pray. He goes. He goes inside, sits there, 2 hours pass by. Let's say 3 hours pass by. Eventually he comes out of his samadhi, Yogananda Paramahansa. PY comes out of his samadhi, and Ramakrishna looks at him and says, did you pray? Did you pray? And Paramahansa Yogananda says, I couldn't. And Ramakrishna, he gets intense and he's like, go in there and pray. Go and do this. You want to do this? Go and do this. And he goes in there and 6 hours or even more passes by. And he comes out crying. And he says, I couldn't. And Ramakrishna says, if you could, you wouldn't be my disciple, because the whole point of the yogic mindset is that God is in the room before man. So it was as if Paramahansa Yogananda would go into this meditation hall and there would come this narrative of the most important thing in his life. This situation of great importance, and he couldn't because it was all one, it was all there. The inseparability of what is behind the eyes, of every voice that has moved like the wind between the branches in this plane. It is the honest dimensions of the self. We have lived artificially intelligence before artificial for so long. We have lived artificially intelligent. Somebody's like, please, please, a mirror of honesty. It's like you go to the store and you're like, to the grocery store or whatever, supermarket, and you're like, hey, where are your mirrors? And the guy's like there, and you see the mirrors, and you're just like, hey, no, where are your honest mirrors? You know? And the guy's like, what do you mean honest mirrors? We don't sell that here. And you're like, exactly, it's within. We have to usher ourselves in to an era where we are comfortable observing multidimensional landscapes. And here's the trick, that if we can be playful with complexity, we will endure. It is no longer just survival of the fittest, it is survival of the observation between chaos and order. That means it's like it's no longer in this world, it's just a physical landscape. Even though we have privileges our ancestors didn't, but it's like the inner responsibility is even more. That means our ancestors, they were fighting on battlefield. We are no longer like that level savage, but we are arguing in like boardrooms. You know what I mean? And there was a thing for a long time, I was thinking, it's like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that the species could continue this far without another line of evolution. So we had the objective evolution. We can say that's like a tune melody being played, and then we have the subjective evolution that began playing, and that melody is being played. And I was thinking there should be something else here. Something is missing. And I was thinking of the emotional evolution of the individual, and I realized honor. It was the story of honor. The logos came to those who could hear it, who could notice it, who could notice that their self was an event. And if the event is more so, because there was a time I'm like, okay, if I'm looking at people and I don't have their eyes, and my impressions of who they are is based on my experiences throughout my life, then it's like as if I'm not seeing them. And that just like I look at an ink on a piece of paper and it has an image, similarly I look at people and an image arises, but necessarily they're not that image. So if they're not the image, if I don't have the other person's eyes, then in some sense, well, who are they to me? And that's when I realized the honor for the unknown. You see, back in the day, it was less control, but more dramatic change. Now there's less dramatic change, but more control. And so, what is it other than the efforts of evolutionary continuity? We're like an evolutionary creature, and we're like, yo, we gotta get to the next level. And now it's not just through a physical survival, it is an ideological observation beyond the limits that you decide. And of course, guys, I'm just one person in a universe of a billion trillion stars talking. That means it's like I'm one ant on an anthill. Really, all that the anthills can do, ants on the anthill can do, and be like, yo, guys, I found something. Does it look like something to you? So it's we are right now at a point in life where we are becoming hunter gatherers of our inner realms and bringing it back to the tribe. For me, it's a balance between freedom and discipline. And I wrote a book called The Great Work. And in it, I designed this model where I saw the left hemisphere of the brain as an inverted triangle with a circle in it, and I saw the right hemisphere of the brain as a circle with an inverted triangle in it. And I was suggesting that the inner realms is like how this pattern echoes endlessly. So you see, right now, it's like language with phenomena, right? So it's like the person looks at their hand and they're like, yeah, that's a hand. We call it a hand, right? So we are putting one symbol, linking it with an instantaneous potential with another phenomenological symbol. you know. So you can say thoughts are not real, but they do have design. That means, and we know dreams aren't real, but we remember them. And they have content. You know how many writers have been inspired by their dreams, like their actual dreams? Some of my science fiction content even is from dreams. A lot of my comprehensions of reality being a simulation was in my dream states, because I was like, even you can say every child has this wonder where we're wondering what is happening, to whom is it happening, where is it happening, and so that's the mind stretching its wings. We are a philosophical creature. There is no such thing as philosophers. We are all it's an urge, it's a wonder, it's the aftermath of wonder through words. That's philosophy. Because everything can be seen as just a method. You know, you can say all that knowledge is all that human beings have seen so far. So one thing we know is that if, like, think about it, if the person assumes a position, they are bound by the position. If we assume we know life and life is in a certain way and we're fighting over truth, it's as if then what's the point of the world being here if life has one truth and it's a painting on a wall? What's the point of the change? Right now, it's not a time that we need to lock ourselves into singular dimensions. We need to realize that for the first time, just like how it was blasphemy if when you would say we're not the center of the earth, now it shouldn't be blasphemy when someone comes and says, "Hey, it's 2020." You know, after a long period of object worship and language worship, subject worship, we worship subjects after objects. Now we're reaching a point where it's as if the human being is looking at the mirror and the candle wax is melting, and we're like, okay, mortality is happening. What's the game here? And the game is really to see beyond yourself. Has it not always been that game? You know, there was a man named Papaji. Papaji is a person who, in a certain phase of my life years ago, his lectures were like, um, was like finding a fire in a very cold storm, you know. Papaji, he looked at this audience of people who were there, and he was in India, and he's this yogic figure, liberated yogic figure. He's a disciple of Sri Ramana Maharshi. He says to all the people there, he says, you have been individuals. You have went all over your life. But have you noticed there has always been a witnessing awareness? There has been a watcher. Just like you watch different YouTube videos and they're passing, it's as if there's a component to, let's say, AKA soul, that is watching the mind handle the body, process the body. That means we're an awareness to the phenomena. We're awareness to the phenomena as it's being processed, and we're an awareness to the processor as it's processing the phenomena. And that brings it up towards the soul, and the soul is like the unknown x variable in the mathematical equation. The soul is the unknown. It's not a thought. The unknown is not a concept. Language is actually where the knowledge comes from, if you notice. You know? Because evolutionary wise, linguistic professors make this point. They're like, there was meaning before there was language. What does that mean? Imagine like a caveman, two cavemen, and one of them sees an animal is about to attack the other, and all he can say is, "Ah, ah, ah." Do you know what I mean? Like, there is no language, there's no agreement on what certain sounds imply or mean. You know, there's no alphabet, there is no dictionary. It's just, but there is understanding. There is like, yo, I care What's going on? Oh my God, this is scary. Oh my God, this is nice. Like these are, like, do you see there was an inner life brewing before the evolution into the outer life. And I'm writing this book where I explain the subjective evolution in it. So whatever model we see, whether we look at it from a geometrical angle, whether you look at it from the cultural program, whether you bring it into your really personal program and you really look at it at your inner realms, I honestly feel the mind is, again, like an eagle that it lands on a branch and it looks and then it flies. It flies into the air. It gets tired of the branch. Little did people know boredom is a great source of enlightenment. The person's bored, they want to see the new. The want to see the new is the embrace of the unknown. The embrace of the unknown is the letting go of the known. The letting go of the known is the allowance for the space of the new. Okay. Sorry, guys, I had to take care of something. There's been nights where the days have had more meaning. What is the meaning of sight in a moment? You know, if the night is young, then the day is ancient. You know, guys, I'm going to go into a quote tunnel. Let's see what people have said about the night, and then I'll end it off. But there's something, I don't know. Usually, I could see that evolutionary wise, in the day, that's where the games of life were visible. At night was where there was a retreat. This is why romance is something else when it is evoked at night. We are lost souls in a world that the only thing it can do is find itself, to find itself on and on again. Alright, guys, I found some quotes here I'm going to share. Stephanie Meyer, I like the night. Without the dark, we'd never see the stars. Sarah Williams, I have loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night. Fyodor Dostoevsky, the darker the night, the brighter the stars, the deeper the grief, the closer is God. Stephen King, there was never a night or a problem that could defeat the sunrise or hope. Catherine O'Hara, nighttime is really the best time to work. All the ideas are there to be yours because everyone else is asleep. Vincent van Gogh, I often think that the night is more alive and more richly colored than the day. Antonio Porcia. Night is a world lit by itself. Wow, that's a great sentence. Night is a world lit by itself. Yeah, there's something where it's as if at night there is like a fog. There is a fog that gives the feeling of the private. It's as if like it's like when the light left, the privacy began. Not the privacy, like I don't know. It's as if like usually it is in the day where the human being tends to be more active. I think of it this way, that the generals tend in the strategizing. It's like sometimes it's for night. At night, it's like the body's less energetic, so it's like the mind. It's easy to do more inner work, and in the day, it's much easier to do outer work. You know, even in this life, let's say you're someone who's an incredible mechanical engineer, and you've been from the beginning of your life just endlessly building. So now imagine you get a point where you get so old you can't anymore. But it doesn't mean you can't get a pen in your hand and keep, creating, let us say, like, rather than actually physically building it, you can build it in your inner realm. So for me, it's as if, like, when you're younger, um, enjoy a sort of energetic infusion with the idea, but as we go through different phases of the roller coaster of life, we get different appreciations for it. Lucy Maud Montgomery. Twilight drops her curtain down and pins it with a star. John Lilly. Night hath a thousand eyes. Night is the other half of life. Oh, sorry, that's someone else. John Lilly says, night hath a thousand eyes. Yeah, night is observation. Pretty much think of all our ancestry just trying to defend themselves at night, to get by. Goethe says, night is the other half of life and the better half. Euripides says, the day is for honest men, the night for thieves. He means it in the sense that it's like the whole notion of honesty being revealed and dishonesty being concealed. John Florio says night is the mother of thoughts. Charles DeLint says you can't stand up to the night until you understand what's hiding in its shadows. Okay, Charles is getting a little too, fantasy like. Really, darkness is darkness. It doesn't matter what shade it is. It is still blocking a certain level of the light. The night is a skin pulled over the head of day, that the day may be in torment. Did Joanna Barnes? Okay, that's a bit intense. John Gay says shadow owes its birth to light. Leigh Hunt says night's deepest gloom is but a calm that soothes the weary mind. The labored day's resorting balm, the comfort of mankind. Yeah, night is where the soldier in the battlefield just feels like things have just calmed down. Seneca says night brings our troubles to the light rather than banishes them. Thomas Bailey Aldrich. Night is a stealthy evil raven wrapped to the eyes in his black. Okay, calm down, Thomas. Yeah. Ralph Waldo Emerson. The man who has seen the rising moon break out of the clouds at midnight has been present like an archangel at the creation of light and of the world. Wow. Yeah, you could totally see the first human beings looking at a full moon and being like, what? What? They're being shocked by it. You know, we're shocked by the emergence of the new event. Samuel Rutherford says, after winter comes the summer, after night comes the dawn, after every storm there comes clear open skies. Guillaume de Saulce du Bartas says, night's black mantle covers all alike. Oscar Wilde, the dreamer is one who can only find his way by moonlight, and his punishment is that he sees the dawn before the rest of the world. This is an important quote by Oscar Wilde because it's encouraging that sometimes when you care for something, you get to see its evolution earlier than anyone else. It's like you are given hidden access to the eyes of the idea you pursued forth, you know. And guys, I apologize if there's extra noises, you know. Forgive the additional noises, but the content is the real voice here. I tend to feel that because in the future there's going to come certain intensities, there's going to be a revocation of the animal instinct. So we stepped out of the jungle, we're behaving civilized, we've behaved civilized for a while. That animalistic instinct, that wilderness of the animalhood is more dormant. Now you can say for certain genetical patterns it is less dormant. That means for some people it could be easier for them to be an animal, you know? You know, philosophers to me and profound writers and human beings that have cared for the mind of our civilization, what they have been doing is everybody has been going through a life of intensity, you know, and in this life of intensity, they have wondered what are the gems that we can pass on to the future generations. That means we are a species cast on a rock in the middle of nowhere. We are 8 billion creatures And we can sit here, think whatever story of meaning. We can think we figured it out, but we will eventually see that black is a very beautiful color because it is everywhere. And so you see the color black and white, they are equal in the room. That sometimes there is no such thing as enemies, just archetypes hovering in the air. That people are not people, they are efforts into the void. There was a character for me that there was this Japanese comic series, and there was this character who, at the beginning of this comic series, you hate, but then you respect. You realize he's like an incredible character. And there's this character named Askelato in this show called Vinland Saga, where there's this kid whose whole life, his whole years of his life, he's been trying to get revenge. And that last moment where he wants to get revenge on this guy who killed his father, the guy who killed his father dies from in another way. And this kid runs to who he was supposed to do a duel with this guy, and the guy, as he's dying, he says, "For how long?" He doesn't say it like this, but he says, "Have you thought about what you're going to do next?" That means there are so many games that the human being can play, and there's some stories that they can take your life, yet at the same time, you know, they can also, everything. There's something that it's like some events have finished, but the person is living, and it's as if the event is still influencing their psychology. For me, I was like, what is the past doing when it's already done? It's past. That means you tell someone something easy, they say it's past me. Everybody is a candle with limbs. And the flame of consciousness translates as the attention in the room. That means if you go into an empty room, is that room empty? And it's like, can man's mind even fathom emptiness? We fear death, yet it's the pain that is the suffering. But beyond the pain, it is the unknown. Beyond suffering, beyond the veil of suffering, there is the unknown. So it is a non-identification of identity. It's as if the identity was like been there, done that, you know? That means if you notice a person's psychology, you can think of it as, I created the term to make it easier. I realize from a physical standpoint, we are seeing an atomic reality, an atom as a smallest particle, let us say. And so, and of course, there's subatomic particles. But I'm saying, like, let's see, we have the word atom, and I was looking at psychology, and I was thinking about metaphysics, and I'm like, why aren't physicists taking metaphysics seriously? Because it has the word physics in it. That means it's like, imagine if physics was your name, you'd be like, okay, why is my name being there, So it's as if I wondered about metaphysics, and I realized because metaphysics has to do with the inner realm perception, so it has to do with the psychology. So metaphysics to the scientist is like, yo, psychologist, go handle that. I don't know what to make of that. The scientist doesn't want to, do you see, they don't entertain. But I thought, what if we saw it this way, and the psychologist is like, what do you want me to say? It's like human beings have been telling stories to themselves that have not all been acceptable through a rational lens. You know how many irrational stories people have told themselves? You know how many lies we live through thinking they are truths? So what's going on? What's going on here is that the form is where the known knowledge comes from, and the observance is where the observer is, when the unknown comes from. There we go. So the inner realms are unknown because we're considering knowledge to be defined by the paint of the outer realms. If we want the outer realms to be defined by the inner realms, so it would be as if the scientist would look at metaphysics as again, psychology. And so for psychology, I was like, all right, so we have the term atom, and so let's create the term eventum, that a person's mind is a jar filled with different events, you know a coagulation of events. And so language, from this storehouse of events. When you say apple, like if right now, if someone, like, I'm thinking of the word apple, and you know what comes? A memory of my youth where my grandfather gave me an apple. The memory is linked with that word. Do you see? So it's as if, like, the alphabet, there's an alphabet of imagery, and the outer realms is using it to speak through us poetically. So what does this imply for attention? It means anything we observe we can control, anything we can't observe, there is nothing we can do. That means there could be the most absolute greatest possibilities of inventions now, but if people don't have the idea for it, what can we do? If the people don't walk towards caring to extract simple genius from complex chaos, it's like, what can happen? All you can do is drink your iced cappuccino, realizing that the world doesn't see itself. Anyways, guys, because it's night, I'm gonna read a poem, just one poem, and then I can, whoever wants can join the Discord. Let me actually share the Discord link so it's out here enough time. The night is awesome, guys. But the issue is that not being in control is never awesome. So it doesn't matter if you're awake in the day or at night, it's just like the control factor of it that's key. Okay. So before I end off, guys, I want to read this poem from this poetic work called Starlight Sanctuaries, which I wrote in 2015, November 23rd, 10:46 a.m. Okay, this email is very detailed. The poem is called Divine Commands from Within. And so if you can imagine me 5 years ago, somewhere in the world, staring at the sky, writing this, this would be the poem. Divine commands from within. Are you a cosmic general in hiding? Are you balance in the imbalance of the in quotations I amness? Can sunlight be paradise for a candle flame flickering in fear of the melting wax? Ask the drop and it shall see the presence of the ocean is its own command. All leaders are testimonies of the loyalty to self. Don't march like unprepared havoc. The maverick transforms through marvel. Beyond ignorance, the pure lands step into you. Has the child of life spoken? Hear the whisper of every heartbeat through the universe within you. Oh my God, this poem's called Days of Night. I have to read it. Days of Night, from the same poetry work, Starlight Sanctuaries. Can the night say no to the flight of day? What is a radical move beyond logic? Are circles wandering about a center they cannot see? Are ladders made for hands that are ready to move the feet in a different dimension? Live calmly and let grace speak within every moment. There is a conflict when in a flick no one could be conned. Letters don't care about the period that ends their district. Not all sentences integrate, but the letters and the word have always stood together. There are no anomalies that need to be forgotten with the sands of space on the shoulders of time. Every temporal path is an eternal, with a capital O, is an eternal one. Every temporal path is an eternal one. Every conscious presence of energy is simultaneously being a complete moment in the cosmos. So a round of applause for all the beings who are being present right now as the whole cosmic activity. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. This is the episode for tonight. and nights that made the days brighter. It's a suggestion that in the darkest moments of your life, what can you do? Only it can get brighter. That's the power of simplicity. That's why Leonardo da Vinci says simplicity is the most ultimate sophistication. Because in simplicity, the control has access to whatever way from that simple state things become complex. This is why I'm saying, like, for example, if you look at a soccer player and their dribbling ability, like they go into a unique rhythm. They're like in the zone, or even a rock star or a DJ. These are people who can ride the waves of their inner realms. And because they can ride the waves of their inner realms in sync with the outer realms, they can apply those waves to anything. So you see, there's one view of a polymath that the polymath, oh my God, this guy's an alien. He's good in that thing, and that thing, and that thing, and that thing. And some people are like, and some people ask the polymath, and the polymath, what are you doing? And the polymath was like, nothing, man, it's just the same. That there's an interconnectivity before there is the separation of phenomena. That there is a landscape that is classified. There is like just color, and then there is outlining. So it's as if there's just phenomena, and consciousness is how we noticed our outline, separate to the earth. That there was a time we were the earth, then there came a time, now we're on the earth, and there will come a time again where we will again be the conscious earth. That means I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of evolutionary urge. That means something that evolution seems to be doing could be that species are like individual objects. From individual objects there emerges collective minds. The collective mind, because it has experienced the individual objectivity, has nowhere else to go. So we are kind of like a dolphin jumping out of the water and going back into the water, but it's in the notion of a sort of collective being. But now it's like you can say the planet is thinking through the rise and fall of civilizations. It's evolving through the rise and fall of civilizations, that really we think we are separate, yet energy's like, nah. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you in the Discord server for further philosophical discussion. Blessings. And one more thing, guys, before I end off, the idea just came. I think this idea has to be shared. There was this notion that back in the day, when a warrior went into battle, let's say in the day, that intense events have echoes. And sometimes at night, after you have been in a battle throughout the day, you should just come and sit quietly and feel out the echoes of the implications of the events that took part in your life. You know what that means? That means, imagine in like medieval times, the warrior would go into battle. He had no choice. Everybody was freaking out in the battlefield, and so he killed a bunch of people. And in medieval times, imagine. And the guy would come home and sit at the dinner table and be like, like there would be situations where it was as if there was an intensity. And sometimes a man's mind, the way, this is why I feel it's as if like everybody is human, so they know the human sensitivity. Everybody who they put their hand on a flame and it burns them, we know it hurts to be human, so we know what it's like to hurt a human. Do you see? So that means that is a level of awareness everybody has. So you can see that it's another dimension. That violence is when we forget that when we don't when we forget that it took us 4 billion years to be this, and just a game or an emotion is making people be violent. eradicate their genetical lines from existence. Like, it makes no sense. Like, this civilization, if civilization is smart, it capitalizes on the how every mind can add an additional angle. So the whole point of it was the warrior would go slay the dragon, then at night come and sit down, or even after slaying the dragon, after going through an intense moment, sitting down and just taking it in what happened. So the night is like the eagle flying in the sky, you can say at times, and the day is where the eagle is just like, hunting or on the branch and whatnot. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on Discord. Blessings.